Welcome. Sorry, small technical delay on my end.
Hey,
Alex, what's up?
all good. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you perfectly.
No, that's great.
Let me send out a tweet. We are kicking off. Give me one sec.
Sure.
How's your...
Pretty good so far. Just started. In Israel, it's Sunday is actually a work day.
True. So Sunday is
Yeah.
like my
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. Yeah. Everything is a little bit shifted. Yeah, so we don't have like too many topics for today, but we do have some interesting ones to discuss. And as usual, everyone is welcome to join in. So tell me when you're ready to get started.
I am ready to get started, and I'm wondering why Telegram never populates the preview on my links.
It started recently, and I don't know. A lot of people noticed. I didn't actually investigate, but yeah, it stopped showing previews if you post the link to tweet. It used to kind of create a preview, but now it doesn't for some reason.
Yeah, it's strange. They have Telegram has so many updates, and often when you update once, there's a few coming in behind it.
Yeah, that can be very well. Or there is like some secret war going on that we don't know about. Yet another one.
Yeah, wouldn't be at all surprising. The one thing I did notice, I don't know if it was the last update for Telegram or one of the recent ones, is that they enabled like a paid kind of like Twitter Blue.
Yes, yes, I did. I did subscribe to their premium or whatever they are calling it accounts. I really liked the star, this kind of blue, beautiful star that you get.
Yeah,
But the problem is that everybody else sees that star, but not you.
yeah, true.
And other than the star, everything else is basically like I don't use any of the paid features. The only one I probably could have used is that you get like 10 pinned chats instead of five. But it's so annoying that it's five. Like why would it be five? Like why don't you like give me like really this is what you're selling for premium features and ability to pin more than five chats?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah. So anyway, um, Arnold Schwarzenegger celebrated his 75th birthday yesterday.
holy. That makes me feel myself old.
Yeah, ancient, unbelievable.
Yeah,
Yeah, like every once in a while, like this, like some actor from your childhood, like pops in the news, and he's like over 50, over 60, over 70, and you're like, my God. Um, yeah, so kind of quoting one of his lines is that we promised to release bands like last week, but we lied. Um, we didn't lie, but we actually, yeah, we really wanted to release it, but there were some additional tests and fixes that were needed. So it will happen this fall. Um, and in general, things are moving pretty well with all of the releases. Tomorrow, we're going to announce the fork, the height of the next hard fork, which is kind of not exactly a hard fork. We just forgot to update the parameter for the asset creation price, and we will fix that. So it's kind of this soft hard fork or mild hard fork without too many changes. Um, and we will release the bands as we discussed the specific date and time. And all of these details will be published in tomorrow's newsletter and in our channels. So this is kind of the short update from Beam development. And so today we're going to talk mainly, I think, about the upcoming Ethereum merge because I didn't know too much about it, so I started reading, and it turned out to be more interesting than I kind of expected initially. Unless we have any other kind of interesting news to discuss. There was this another stable coin that went bust.
Yeah, this was the Nirvana.
Nirvana, yes, the Solana-based stablecoin, and it was exploited. It was exploited using this very, I would say, classic already method of creating a flash loan and then pumping the collateralized asset and then extracting a lot of stable coins as a result, and then putting the collateral back into the lending protocol from where it came. So it was very kind of sophisticated, but like very familiar already manipulation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think you can drop the link to this Cointelegraph article, which describes this very well, to the tweet, so everybody can read about it. It's a cautionary tale, as usual, of trying to plan for these flash loan situations. Not a simple thing to do, but in my opinion, very necessary, because flash loans create really unpredictable behaviors. You can basically borrow a lot of like money for free and do all kinds of manipulations, arbitrages, etc. Yeah, so look, this is one kind of piece of news we wanted to mention. Another one is so I'm subscribed to this channel called VU Blockchain News on Telegram. They also have a Twitter, and they are kind of providing a lot of interesting stories, and their signal to noise ratio is pretty well. So they don't post a lot of shit, but rather like very focused and interesting articles. So another one that appeared on that channel was a Paradigm Fund letter to their LPs, describes the opportunities in DeFi protocols. And I think it was very interesting to mention because there is a crisis, there is a bear market, like a lot of things went kind of poorly recently, but interestingly, DeFi, the proper DeFi, behaved better than CeFi in these situations. And it's an interesting kind of, in my opinion, very interesting observation, because DeFi is very experimental, so you wouldn't like expect this. But the truth is that in some cases, for example, that we heard about, let's say loan that you need to repay, and you have a loan you took from two parties, the DeFi and the CeFi. So in DeFi case, you will repay this loan because otherwise you will be just liquidated by the protocol. It's a smart contract. You can't negotiate with it. You can't threaten it. You can't manipulate it, right, in any way. And this is actually what happened. Like in most of the recent like financial troubles that organizations went through, they first and foremost repaid their DeFi loans to avoid those liquidations.
Yeah.
And only then they went and kind of tried to renegotiate the terms with CeFi counterparties. And it's an interesting kind of thing to notice, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because like a lot of, or at least like the picture that I got from the recent kind of trouble that was happening in like the CeFi kind of lending in this kind of space is that a lot of it was to do with like it being very obfuscated as to like what the party was doing and how much collateral they actually had backing it. Whereas also in DeFi, that's not the case, and obviously like people were watching the like big loans in DeFi getting repaid and to get unlock that sort of collateral that was backing the loans.
yeah, I agree. It's this kind of I'm not sure if it's like by design or not, but this is the side effect of this transparency that we have today on most DeFi enabled chains like Ethereum and such, where you can actually see and track what are the positions of different organizations. So yes, it's much more transparent than in CeFi, where you know what they're doing with your money behind your back. I totally agree. But I think that this specific letter to LPs like the last kind of summary paragraph is optimistic, right? Despite the current situation of the bear market, and it has like a lot of you know describes a lot of potential for DeFi applications.
Yep.
And overall, I think it's a very positive outlook, and you know, it's always nice to hear that. And also, they emphasize that it's not only financial applications now, and it's also kind of moving into gaming a lot, digital art, social networking, and other areas which are not like directly financial related to, which is amazing and good news.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this will be like if we look at the overall crypto space and look at like the last cycle in like 2017 and this kind of stuff, like DeFi was like very, very basic, but it was starting to like people to see what could be done with it in terms of like Ether Delta, which was like a kind of DEX and very, very minimalistic and basic and and very awkward to use. And now like looking at the present, like what we have in DeFi and the different applications, whether it's like AMM style dexes or lending, it's come like a huge, huge, huge way. And I feel like this is for the non-financial applications like gaming and other things. I feel like we're at the, for lack of a better descriptor, we're at the Ether Delta kind of stage of it. And going forward in the next years, it'll be very interesting to see like the progress that is made on this front.
Absolutely. So it's really amazing because like even though crypto exists for quite a few years already, but it always seems that we're in the beginning of something because you know things change and like we're in the beginning of DeFi and we're even more in the beginning of like NFTs and digital art and gaming and all that. So every couple of years, new areas like entire areas of application pop up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like absolute beginner kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we can start talking about kind of the main topic that we wanted to discuss tonight. I don't know, like I didn't go to East Paris, and like I don't know if some of our listeners went there or been there, but obviously one of the key topics of interest were about the upcoming Ethereum merge.
Hmm.
So, like this is what they call this process of moving from proof of work mining algorithm to proof of stake. And one topic in particular that I would like kind of to start with is MEV, right? Miner extractable value. And we all heard about this, and I was actually kind of not surprised, but like a little bit surprised to learn that miners on Ethereum, and we're talking about like mining pools, they have actually an API. Like they have an API for MEV bots, and they instead of like each bot trying to flood the network with a lot of transactions, they say, wait a minute, you want to provide us with your kind of transactions to put in the block? No problem. Let's, you know, come to us from a side, like whisper in our ear what you want. And obviously it will cost you something because you're making profit of it. And we will try to put your transaction in the right place, right?
Yeah.
And that's how this ecosystem actually kind of works today. And obviously, there is quite, I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe top Ethereum mining pools that concentrate vast majority of the mining power. But still, it's a probabilistic process, right? So you cannot really guarantee that your block will be kind of the one accepted in this next stage, right? So there is a high probability, but it's not a 100% guarantee. And one of the topics that were discussed during these sessions that I find very interesting is like what's going to happen with when the transition is complete to proof of stake, right? So we don't have miners anymore.
Yeah.
And you have validators. So first of all, let me ask you a trick question. If there are no miners, can there be miner extractable value?
I would say yes.
Okay. So yes, that's the correct answer. But would it be, oh, can you mute or stop making noise because it's kind of, yeah. Okay. So would it be then, would it be then called a validator extractable value?
It should be right. I mean, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, you would think so. You would think so, but no. And the reason is that actually, when we talk about miners, the process of mining kind of combines two separate operations. The first operation is actually creating the block. So we have the mempool, and there are transactions in the mempool, and you need to assemble them into a block, right, of specific size, etc., with some restrictions. And then there is the second step, which is resources, right? And this is where the actual miners, the people who are sitting with the GPU farms, come to play, and they solve the solution, and they find this nonce that is needed for the pool to close the block. So there are two separate processes, but they are kind of bundled into the same mining process together. And in actuality, the ones who create the block are the ones in control over which transactions go in which order, and how this actually affects what's happening in the blockchain, and the differences in different, sequencing of transactions can be extreme, right? So you can do arbitrages, you can throw away some transactions altogether, or you can, on the contrary, add new transactions that will take advantage of the previous transaction. So there is a lot of space here for manipulation. And this is exactly where those algorithms that they're called searchers. They search for opportunities to manipulate those transactions and extract some profit. So in the current scheme of things, whenever there is this arbitrageur or MEV bot, which is trying to create kind of some advantageous sequencing of transactions, you need to trust the pool not to steal this profit from you, because eventually the pool is the one who is creating the block. So when they see a transaction which is obviously profitable, they can just kind of replace the address to their own wallet and just exploit this opportunity themselves.
Yeah.
So you need to trust them not to do that. And obviously, like if it's a big pool, probably they won't do that, even though, probably on the amount and other parameters, but you can trust them to play fair. And when we are talking about proof of stake, there are two key differences. First difference is that you do know exactly when is your turn to close the next block, right? So yes, you have like a lot of validators, but the way it works is that there is a sequence of validators and you know who is going to be next. So unlike mining with proof of work algorithms that you can hope that, like, if you have a lot of hashing power, you are going to be the best, but you cannot be sure about it. In this case, it's a 100% certainty that this specific block, this is going to be a validator that is going to close it. By the way, these validators, they're called block proposers, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this sheds some light on my lack of understanding. But how far in advance I've already forgotten their name. How far in advance do they know that block will be theirs?
So I'm not 100% sure. If somebody knows the correct answer, please tell us. But let's say even if it's the next block, like one block in advance, right, or two, it's still enough for for the bots to try to kind of understand what is going to happen there and try to propose their own kind of transactions.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I think in most cases it's even going to be effective up to like the next block, because if the state of the blockchain changes each block, so maybe there are new opportunities that were just created and you want to exploit them as quickly as possible.
Yep.
So what is going to happen is that actually you do have two separate entities here. So you have the block builders, the entities who create blocks, and then you have separately the block validators, out of which one of them is going to be the proposer of the block, and everybody else need to kind of accept it, verify it, and become validators. And unless you have something like built into the protocol, you basically have the same exact like issue with these bots that are doing this minor extractable value. They are going to go to this block producer and block builder and try to convince this block builder to take their version of events so they can benefit the most from this specific sequence of transactions. And the way to, like, one of the ways that you can do it is by creating this marketplace. And there is like a project that's doing that. I think it's called MEV bots or something like that. And you create a marketplace where you first suggest kind of you produce the header of the block, which contains all of the fees that will be collected by the validator. The validator just selects from the top, like, what's best for them, basically the most profit they can get out of the block. And only then it publishes the block itself, the body of the block, and they can choose, like, not choose, they just take this block that they have selected and they see the transactions that went into it. Okay. So the point here is that you have the separation of kind of two processes, right? So the validators just validate and the block producers just build blocks. And you have a marketplace. So if you have like several organizations or several kind of block producers, they can create different blocks. And the one who manages to assemble the most profitable block for the validators will win and their block will be taken. But still, you have this problem that when you are a bot who is maximized value, you need to trust this block producing entity, right? Whoever produces blocks, you need to trust them not to steal your trading ideas, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this actually, like what you're saying, or about like the need to trust, this made me think of something I saw a while back, like directly to do with the minor extractable value, MEV. And it was a conversation between two individuals that had searches, and they were like obviously running a very similar kind of search or whatever you call it, like looking at the same opportunities for arbitrage. And because they were looking in the same place, they were like outbidding each other on the marketplace, almost to the point of it not being profitable for either of them. Like it was very good for the pool that was like mining the block, but for the searchers themselves, because they kept outbidding themselves, the like margin of profit shrunk greatly and almost like disappeared.
Yeah, that's basically what happens when there is like a fierce competition between like two entities on the same goal. And it reminds me of this scene from The Beautiful Mind, which is a movie about mathematician Steve Nash. Steve Nash? George Nash? I don't remember his name. And he described this like process of like how there are like several girls at the bar, and everybody goes for the most beautiful girl. And that's how he invented the Nash equilibrium with the movie once again. Never try to learn history from Hollywood movies. It's not a good idea.
No, true.
Yeah, but that's exactly what's happening. So basically, when you are a MEV bot, first of all, they mostly are specialized, right? So they're not necessarily looking for all different kinds of opportunities, but rather they focus on, let's say, arbitrages or like different kinds of different types of value extraction, because each of these kind of types of MEV, it's very complicated. It requires a lot of speed analysis and things like that. So it's kind of not really simple to create a bot that will just extract any value like whatsoever. But yeah, definitely that's exactly what's going to happen. You will have a lot of bots competing for this space and trying to compete. And one of the things that were discussed in these sessions, and then I think we can like send these two links that we discussed. The first one is a video with Talek Buterin talking about this issue, which is very interesting to watch. And the second one is a more like depth article describing the economics of this. So the point is like if you manage to take this, they call it PBS, proposer builder separation into the protocol. So if it's like part of the system, essentially, then you remove this issue of trust because then you make sure whoever proposes, like whoever builds the block, does it in a way that doesn't require like anyone else to trust him, right? So he cannot kind of cheat there. He cannot collude with the proposer in this and tell him, listen, I'm going to make money out of this, and we're not going to share it with like people who are actually, creating these MEV opportunities. Let's just share it between us. So it's more difficult to do that. And this is exactly the point of this proposer builder separation. It's very interesting for several reasons, and I will also talk a little bit why it's interesting also to B.A.N., even though it's a little bit different story. So it's interesting because, first of all, what's going to happen immediately post merge? These proposals are not in. They've been discussed, but they're not. It's not in the protocol, at least not right now. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of kind of new types of power struggles, and what once was this kind of several big mining pools will be replaced with these new bodies. You have block producers and you have block proposers and relayers and everything in between. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this is going to develop and what will happen in the end, who is going to profit more or less. But there will be a lot of mess, that's for sure. That's like one important point. And the second important point is this whole concept of MEV. It's going to be kind of essential part of this entire system. And for me, it's very interesting to see how this is going to affect. So it affects the trading right now, but I think it's going to be even more kind of relevant, I would say, like in this new situation where you're absolutely sure who is going to close the next block and there's still no PBS in place.
Yeah. And one thing it's maybe not so much a question but a point. Like often when we talk about MEV, we talk about like the DEX arbitrage or liquidations or sandwich trading and these kind of things. And often it's mentioned in like a negative light. But there is positive MEV examples, and I think that you brought up one like in early spaces, and I mean one of the few that I've seen examples of like positive kind of MEV in the wild, and I think it was to do with like maybe an L2 or something like this, and someone put forward a proof, and the proof was picked, and one of the bots like picked it up and saw that and got the reward for kind of showing that it was like had an issue.
No, definitely not all MEV is negative. For example, if you are rebalancing a pool, so yes, you are performing an arbitrage, but this arbitrage is essential for the entire operation of DEX, right? So you need to have these arbitrageurs in and making the price balanced again against the kind of outside feeds. But by all means, the only question is, it's kind of a little bit question of I don't know whether to call it like fairness, but like equal opportunity. Because if you are just a trader who is not very sophisticated, you don't run bots, you're basically like outgunned and outnumbered, right? You don't.
Yeah.
Let's say you are suddenly recognize like this amazing opportunity, and you're sending your transaction from your wallet. Like, be sure that there are like dozens of bots waiting just for that, analyzing it on the fly, and say, "Whoa, look at this guy! He found something amazing. Let's replace him. Hey, you block producer, here, take a few more bucks and just put my transaction instead of his."
Yeah, yeah.
That's exactly the problem, and it will solve itself and it will balance, right? But before it does, there is going to be a lot of interesting dynamics. That's what I'm saying. And the link I just sent you is a bankless podcast episode, which is very kind of thorough and basic and very simple. And it describes all of these kind of hidden power structures of Ethereum post merge. Highly recommended. So if you could please also put it in the space, it would be great. They are really kind of explaining everything from the very beginning. So definitely worth listening. It's a little bit long, but it's very comprehensive.
These guys, the bankless guys, are very like Ethereum focused, and maybe to the point of being biased. But they have some really like good stuff that they share, and especially on like they make it very easy to understand some of the like far
Yeah,
too complex issues, especially for
yeah.
someone like myself.
They're definitely doing a great job in explaining everything in a very organized and step-by-step way. And they invite great guests, and they also kind of guide these guests. So even if you bring like an expert in the field, they don't let him to run away. They wait a minute, could you please first explain this and then this and then this? Like it's very very easy to understand. Great job. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. If I understand correctly, it's scheduled for September, which is kind of a month from now, a month and a half.
Yeah. And
Uh,
one of the things that like, I mean, it seems very soon, like September, a month away or something. And like the people that I've spoken to who are like kind of involved in crypto and Ethereum stuff in general, but not like devs or obviously like that. There's a lot of like confusion about what's going to happen for like DeFi protocol, NFTs, and all of this kind of stuff. Like personally, I have no idea.
so I didn't research this topic. I will take a think. Like if I think intuitively, it should be basically kind of terms that you change consensus, but all of the data, all of the state, it all remains the same.
Yeah.
Just like from starting from some specific block, the next block is no longer produced by POV miners and like produced by. Uh, but once again, I think we will kind of get more information before it will actually happen. And even today, I think there are test nets that already work, using proof of stake, and we can play with that. But once again, I didn't go too deep into this topic. One thing I would like to mention, which is related to Beam, it seems like quite a lot of GPUs are going to be looking for a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our job is to make sure some of them, the more the better, end up mining Beam. And this kind of a challenge, I think, that we need to try to achieve together with our community. So if any of you, I don't know, can help in any way, like for example, every once in a while you see the article of like what or like which coins should you mine after Ethereum proof of stake or like after Ethereum merge, and there is a list of like all kinds of different coins. Sometimes Beam is there, and sometimes more often it isn't. So it would be great if you see an article like that. First of all, send it to us, send it to the community. And second, comment, like if Beam is not there, like mention us, bring it to our attention. And I think it would be kind of great to see some of these miners switch to Beam.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, a lot of the few miners after the ETH merge, they will be looking for a new job and also a new home. So like, I think it will be very good for us to like get out there and get active talking in the miner communities. I see President Rusky in the space at the moment. Like, if there's anything that you guys think we can do on our side as well to assist with any GPUs looking to shift over to Beam, let us know and yell out, and we'll make it happen.
Absolutely. Not to mention that there, like, I didn't read about it, but I just heard it like recently, and mostly like that some people are going to try to fork Ethereum and create like several different forks, and then compete between like who is going to be the most popular one, right? What's going to happen with the old chain, the proof of work chain?
Yeah, I mean, like how I firstly understood it, but I haven't followed it more recently, was that like Ethereum one, the like Ethereum ETH as we know it now, still be like operational for a year or a couple of years in conjunction with ETH2. But like from what I'm hearing now, it seems like this has changed, and people are live pushed the proof of work chain to continue on in some kind of direction.
It's going to be a mess.
It will no doubt be very interesting and very like representative of the wider crypto space and like how crazy it is at times. We have
Yeah.
we have one question in the Telegram chat from Joe.
Yeah, I
And
see, I see it, and
yeah,
it was asked. It was asked during the previous space last
it
week, and we
was, yeah.
didn't answer it. Yeah, um,
Apologies for that.
absolutely. We're very sorry. We'll answer it now. So the question is like, is it theoretically possible for a B.A.N.S address to receive any coin and represent it synthetically in the Beam wallet? Kind of switching back from all of this Ethereum stuff back to our Beam. Yeah, so the answer is yes, but we need to make sure that it's not confusing, and I'll explain exactly why. For example, let's say I have 10 Beam in my wallet, and I also have 10 Beam in my B.A.N.S address, right? So I kind of have 20 Beam, but I kind of don't exactly have them in the same place because the 10 Beam in the B.A.N.S address, they're actually in the contract, and the other ones are in my wallet. So interestingly, I can create a transaction that takes B.A.N.S like both places and send them like all together to some address. I could do that, but I'm not sure that it can like they're exactly the same, right? So um, we could do it like that, but I'm not sure it's like going to be clearer or on the opposite, more confusing. When you are going to the application, you see that you have 10 Beam in the application and you also have 10 Beam in the wallet, but in the wallet you now see 20. So this is the exact reason why we didn't do it like that. We didn't want to. So first of all, the B.A.N.S is just like going to be launched, and we didn't support like we didn't add complete support in the wallet. But when we were thinking about how to represent your different balances, we specifically did not put them all into this kind of your wallet status screen, right, where you have these exact numbers of your different assets, but rather we kept them into each application. And yes, we are thinking about creating this kind of more detailed dashboard. I want to know, wait a minute, like where do I have all my funds, in which applications they're locked, etc. But I'm not necessarily sure that we will going to put it all in one number. Like I have 100 Beam, where all over the place in 5 different places. I hope it answers the question, and if not, please ask. And in the meantime, we have a request from President Ruski.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say something on the whole merge thing, and in terms of the
Yeah,
Ethereum Classic. So, as far as I know, in my understanding, that there were some like papers signed behind the closed doors, and there was a reason why is personally recommended to go on to Ethereum Classic, and in fact, there's a reason why Ample just endorsed $10 million and invested in Ethereum Classic, and a lot of if you noticed. ASIC manufacturers, they're specifically starting to advertise their ASICs as ETC compatible or whatever. So,
yeah,
so I think there are going to be some PAL kind of like um, cash grab forks but they still have to worry about the problem of what you call it. There's a difficulty bomb, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of things to work on before it's gonna be. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of successful POW forks from Ethereum. To be honest, I think ETC is gonna take the majority, and then what Beam can do in terms of getting some of that hash rate towards it is I guess marketing. I think the biggest struggle in Beam for Beam coming from person on the outside is just marketing. There's been none, and it's not like I'm not trying to talk bad or anything like that, but it's just there hasn't been much of marketing. I have seen um, attempts like lately, but up to this point, there hasn't been that much of marketing on the Beam side. And I think marketing would
Yeah.
open the door for
So
the new miners because a lot of people don't even know Beam exists.
absolutely, I totally agree. And this is exactly like the point in time where we need to seize this opportunity and find a best kind of and most effective spots to you know like pinpoint and attack, because obviously we cannot do any kind of blanket coverage marketing all over the place. But I think if we find these resources, these pools and communities that we can very kind of tactically and accurately target, it will do us a lot of good. So once again, yeah, we do have the resources, we do have the will to do that. And if you have any kind of thoughts about which communities or places we should advertise and it can kind of maximize this effort, please tell us. This is like one thing. The other thing, regarding this Ethereum Classic from recommendation from Vitalik Buterin, I heard this story in kind of two different versions. The first version is basically what we just said, this kind of conspiracy theory, but not exact conspiracy theory, because I don't know exactly what is the relation of Vitalik with the
I
Ethereum
know
Classic.
I know for a fact there were some paper sign, legal sign
Really?
behind closed doors between Vitalik and
Wow.
some of the people involved. There's a reason why Ethereum Classic got to keep the name Ethereum in its name,
Mm.
and everything else, and the logo and everything else. So yeah, there's definitely. I mean, you can take it as a conspiracy theory, but Ethereum
No,
Classic is gonna have a lot of backing, and you're gonna see more and more pools and bigger manufacturers, ASIC manufacturers, flock towards the Ethereum Classic name and back its POW, and how it's been, it's Bitcoin like principalities, and how it's been decentralized in a similar manner. You know,
yeah, yeah. So no, first of all, I didn't mean conspiracy theory in kind of a negative way, because I was talking specifically about this Vitalik's recommendation, like that he said during his talk in Paris. And one of the versions that I heard is like he was half joking, but I don't know. Like if you say there are documents signed, then probably he wasn't. Not to mention the fact that Ethereum jumped how many percent? Like after that, quite a lot.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, he's just I think he's just excited about his proof of stake. Ethereum too. So. And what's best to recommend than something that you created, and
That's for sure.
True.
and he's even Vitalik himself said the only Ethereum killer is Ethereum, and if you kind of understand that, there's two
Hmm.
Ethereums. There's the original Ethereum chain and the continuation of it, and there's the forked off DAO. That's why he said. That's why in that speech he said they stayed to its core. They didn't fork the DAO. Ethereum is the forked DAO.
Hmm. That's right. Yeah, Ethereum is the one that rolled back this hack. Yeah, but it's
The,
it's going to be interesting anyway. We will live and see.
Absolutely, and like agree with Rusky's points, and also Romanov what you mentioned about like targeted advertising and really pumping out some content for miners to get them interested, to get them to know Beam, and hopefully shift over and get some extra GPU. We did have a follow up question from Joe, or rather like a clarification of the question, and the question was like, is it possible for say I have Bitcoin in my Bitcoin wallet or Ethereum in my Ethereum wallet, is it possible for me to send Bitcoin to Gus.Beam or Alex.Beam or whatever, and then the Beam wallet receive like a synthetic asset of that Bitcoin?
Okay. Yeah. So let's put it like this. We are going to, like, once B.A.N.S is operational, we are going to create a more convenient representation of what's happening, like, in your B.A.N.S accounts, than just going into the application. And this is a kind of part of the wallet integration that we are talking about. Probably not going to happen from day one. And in terms of all of the assets that you have on Beam chain, whether they are kind of breached or native, it doesn't matter. You can send either one of those to any B.A.N.S address, obviously. You can extract either one of those into your Beam wallet and then kind of send it to whomever you want. So yeah, it's all going to be based on confidential assets and behave in completely similar way. So the only open question is how exactly to represent like one or several B.A.N.S accounts that you currently own. Like, for example, you have this vault that associated with your B.A.N.S, right? So when some funds are sent to your kind of B.A.N.S domain, then it gets into the vault, and then you can extract it from there. So like one of the questions, like, where do we want to really want to separate those vaults, or like should it be the same place? Do you care to which B.A.N.S address it was sent or not? So all of these questions are kind of open questions that we will try to figure out based on the usage and comments and responses from our community. Because we don't really know what would be more convenient. There are a lot of kind of different variations how we can implement that. And this is exactly why we do the testnet and the dAppNet, and this is why we always are welcoming any feedback, because there are a lot of kind of different ways to do the same thing, and we're trying to find the better one.
Absolutely. And I think like on Joe's question point, like the first kind of big the first big step for B.A.N.S will be wallet integration, and then I think it will be like integrating the B.A.N.S addresses to the bridges that support Beam, so that when if you're bridging assets from Ethereum or from Bitcoin to Beam, obviously like we use different address structure. So rather than saying like to the same address, you'll be able to put in like a B.A.N.S address to receive the bridged assets to your B.A.N.S account.
Yep. Exactly.
I have a question, like looping back to the very beginning and about like proof of work and more specifically the MEV. I googled MEV and I always like consider it as minor extractable value, and then I googled it and it says maximum extractable value. So
yes, it's a recent rebranding.
Okay. Rebranded. Okay, makes sense. I'm not up to date. My question is, how do you, Alex, how do you see MEV playing out and being a part of, for better or worse, the Beam ecosystem, especially as we look to launch, or people look to launch decentralized exchanges, lending and borrowing, and stable coins and these types of things?
So first of all, I don't exactly know what will happen. We will see, because in order to have MEV, you need to have some V, some value to extract. And obviously, when you have a DEX, you have arbitrages. It's like part of the system. And first of all, like, we can't exactly separate between like good MEV and bad MEV, right? So it's not a real possibility. But there are things that, for example, are working a little bit differently in Beam. For example, these high-frequency transactions that we've been talking about, which kind of treats the mempool differently. It's no longer just a list of transactions. It's more like a tree with branches, and whenever your transaction is submitted to a specific position, this position can no longer be changed. Like for example, this prevents certain types of MEV, such as sandwiching, when you create a transaction before and after a certain transaction and like try to influence its behavior. So this is no longer possible. You can add a new transaction after the one that you saw, but not before it. And it's quite difficult to predict exactly how this is going to be used. I think that in general, this idea of treating the mempool differently, or treating it as more as kind of transparent or predictable structure, like not necessarily completely up to block producer to create. I think this idea is not unique to Beam. It is discussed. I saw it in several. Don't exactly remember where, but it's kind of this new frontier, right? The mempool is this place where the action happens now. Nobody waits for the block to be mined. That's too late. That's like ancient history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you need to be able to react, analyze to the transactions as they happen. One of the places where it kind of plays an interesting role is all kind of layer 2 rollups, because this is exactly the place where the sequencer creates this bulk of transaction that is then being rolled up either in zero knowledge form or in optimistic form to the layer 1 chain. And like in mempool, all of these questions of censorship, of transaction manipulation, and of minor extractable value, they also kind of how do we make sure that transactions are not censored? What prevents the sequencer from, taking advantage from the fact that he is the one determining the order of things? I don't really think that it's going to either disappear or change significantly. Like maybe the power will shift from the pools of today to the block producers of tomorrow, but there will still be, a lot of attempts, at least, for collusion and a lot of kind of manipulation. It's unavoidable, because if you have an opportunity to do that, that's exactly what will happen. Yeah, and like I just kind of I think it's very similar to all of these stories that you probably heard about these organizations, building their offices right above the cable that connects, the exchanges that goes those, the microseconds.
The Wall Street guys, and cutting down their cable to the feed and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, because like if you have the computers and you have the power, then the closer you are to the source of information, that's obviously gives you an advantage. And then you have these high frequency traders that shave fractions of cents from every whatever. I think exactly the same thing is going to happen in crypto, whether we want it or not, because that's the way it works.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's something to extract, someone is going to attempt to do so, regardless of good or bad, by whoever's standards.
So we're running almost up to the hour, and I would like to just kind of recommend all of this story about trading reminded me. So one of my favorite books is The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, and it's a book not just about trading; it's more about kind of philosophy in a way, but it's very well written. You just need to kind of ignore his tone, which is a little bit kind of condescending. But if you ignore that, it's a very interesting read. And he kind of describes the mechanics or the dynamics of markets in general, which is like non-linear systems, impossible to predict. And every once in a while, this actually manifests itself, for example, in something that's called the flash crashing. So sometimes all of these, algorithms trading with each other, they get on this kind of weird sync, and they start selling to each other with great loss all of a sudden. Like if you Google market flash crash, like on Wikipedia, you will find it's like it looks on the graph like the whole market like goes down for a second and then it like immediately goes back up because somebody notices and they fix it. But every once in a while, it happens. I think 2015 is one of the years, as I see here. It happened twice.
Yeah, there was. I have not read this book, but I did read a little bit about a guy in the UK who was trading out of his like parents' spare bedroom or his bedroom in his parents' room that like created a flash crash in the market, and it was pretty much by like spoofing the order books, like placing large sells that weren't getting eaten up and lowering them as it went down, and
Yeah. So so that's definitely like things that we're going to see happen a lot. Like the more there is kind of bot trading, quick changes in direction. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's not going to be boring.
Absolutely exciting times ahead.
Definitely. All right, so let's wrap it up. Thank you very much for being here with us. I hope this was, not too boring. All of this Ethereum talk. I promise to get back to B next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Beam has so much coming up, like with the bans and with some yet to be kind of announced officially kind of dApps that are going to be running on Beam and a lot of stuff that's coming to fruition. I think I know that the second half of this year is going to be pretty exciting times for all Beamers and new people entering into the community.
For sure. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys, and see you next week.
See you. Have a good one.
Thanks.
See you, Rusty. Bye-bye.